Yeah, so far I've done mostly like fundraisers. Nights out, I host a trivia show, so I do live trivia. We have some fun with interactive trivia where people are playing in the theater. They're playing maybe in Portland, Maine or Portland, Oregon, and we're having this shared experience, a shared moment. But we did a great fundraiser for local animal shelters. We raised like $800 in like 60 minutes. It was ridiculous. So those types of things that have a communal element. So I don't think, as much as I've been thinking about a live podcast theater for 7 years, nobody else has.
Hey, creative, are you ready to discuss profits, the money, the ways to make it happen? The Profitable Creative Podcast is for you, the creative, how you define it. Videographers, photographers, entrepreneurs, marketing agencies, you get it. CEO of Core Group and author Christian Brim interviews industry experts, creative entrepreneurs, and professionals alike who strive to be creative and make money at the same time. Sound like you? Tune in now. It's time for profit.
Welcome to another episode of The Profitable Creative, the only place on the interwebs where you will learn how to turn your passion into profit. I am your host, Christian Brim. Joining me today is Jeff Revilla of Poduty. I want to give a special shout out to our one listener in Frisco, Texas, just outside of Dallas, Texas. I have been to Frisco. Welcome, Jeff.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. Looking forward to this conversation.
Well, I am excited too, especially since you said the word Poduty. Okay, so give me the origin of that name.
Yeah, go back to 2020. I'm looking for a name for the company. And like everybody, you go to a name register and you start typing in names. And there's great names out there already with the word pod in it. So I'm trying to think about things and how I can get things to come together. And I'm doing the thing. I'm typing words, not available, typing words, that's not available. And I wanted to get something short, and trying to get a 5 or 6 letter domain name is very difficult. So I think of this business as my mission. I'm here. This is my duty to get this done. So it's my podcast mission, it's a little portmanteau of the word pod for podcasting and duty as in mission. But when you put it together and say Poduty, it makes everybody smile and laugh and chuckle like you're a kindergartner and you just said a bad word on the playground. And that's really what I'm building. I'm trying to build something that's fun, lighthearted. You can feel safe saying it and being there. And, we'll get into the story in the background, but the name of it is supposed to be fun and playful, and it's Poduty.
Yes, when you said duty, my 4th grade brain just like he said duty. So it worked. And you made a word. Congratulations.
Yeah, a new word and a 6 letter domain name, all in one fell swoop. I usually joke in the future, are you going to spend time typing in 7 letters to go to Netflix? No, I'm 1 letter less than Netflix. So
yes, perfect. Well, give us the origin story. So how did this Poduty come into being?
For those of you who are watching, I don't know how much this is audio, how much is video, but behind me is a theater space that I've been working on. And it's an idea that I had ever since the days of Blab. I'm one of those people who were around for Blab in 2015, 2016. And Blab had this great social element where you could go live and immediately 30 people would converge on your room. And it was one of those first 4 in the box live streaming services. So those who there have this affinity for Blab, they love it. But when it started to get unstable and it closed down, a lot of people who were there, it left a hole in their live streaming processes and their podcasting processes. And I've been trying to fill that void. We did try Google Hangouts and YouTube Live and Appear In and Hop In and all these other different services, but nothing really replaced the magic that Blab had, that the social live streaming element where you could do a show in front of an audience. And that spark led me to create something called what I called a mobile theater or theater anywhere that could fit in the back of my sedan. My goal was, well, if I can't go to Blab anymore, maybe I'll go to a park and I'll just set up at a pavilion or along a walking path. And that was kind of this first idea of, where could a theater be? Could a theater be anything, anywhere? And that idea kept resonating and eventually booked some appearances. And the first one that we really had booked where I could go and perform my trivia podcast was at a coffee shop. We were going to do free tacos and live trivia March 30th, 2020.
Bad timing. Bad timing.
It wasn't the best timing. Yeah. And so we couldn't do that show, of course. But that idea of, okay, I could take this somewhere, I could set it up, I could do a show and perform for people. And, obviously we're in lockdown and quarantine. And I really, this idea for years kept thinking. And so I went to the people at PodFest. They did a conference called Origins in 2020, which was an all virtual. And I said, hey, I got this idea and I'd like to present it and see what other people think. And I got to present at PodFest in 2020, this idea of this infinite seat theater. You could set up maybe in a basement or, at a friend's party or, just set up with some cameras and some live streaming capability. And wherever you were, that's where the theater was. And you weren't limited by seating capacity because you could now live stream this to anywhere. So that PodFest origin, that tie-in kind of like lit the spark. And then I spent a couple years really piecing it all together and thinking of like, how's this a business? How can this work? How can we, have a place to walk in, turnkey, and put on a show, get a recording, and then give that recording back to the creators. So that's the long story of how we got here. But
well, not too long. I have some follow-up questions too. So in your mind, what is the difference when you add the audience? What changes from a normal dialogue like we're having to including audience?
Yeah, someone listening to this right now, maybe they're in their car, maybe they're doing their workout. And it's a very, podcasting audio, it's not intimate, but it's very one-on-one. You feel like you're in the room and you're just there, immersing in the conversation, taking it all in. When you add live to it, there's two benefits. One, as an audience member, you get to see, I joke how the sausage is made. You get to see that voice in person. You get to see that podcaster. You can react. You can ask questions. You can hang out afterwards, right? You can hang out, get signatures, buy merch, talk, thank them for some previous episodes. You don't get that. And same thing on the podcaster side. You hit publish. All you see is a bunch of numbers go up for the next 7 days and it kind of plateaus and you do it all over again. But when you're in front of an audience, you get that real-time feedback that you can't get from an MP3 file. You get the audience laughing at you and asking questions, maybe even throwing stuff at you if you're really terrible. And then you also get to interact with the audience and get feedback right after the show. So this element that you don't get really is a huge benefit to just trying it. Take your show on the road. Maybe there's a local bar or a library near you. Try it out. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised at what comes from all that.
Well, I used to, long time ago, listen to talk radio. And of course, that's the audio interaction of the audience and does add a different element because you really don't know what the audience is going to say. I mean, you can screen the calls and that, but, once they're live, you've got that button to kill them, but, you don't really know what's going to come out. And I think that's the magic where you get to hear other people like you, I guess, is kind of like, and somebody will say something, yeah, that's what I think, or, but adding the video element is intriguing because really you're creating a mini TV show, if you will. Would you describe it as that?
It's like a DIY television station, really. I always joke about Weird Al's movie UHF. I sometimes say UH Jeff. This is the UH Jeff TV studio where you can come in, perform your show. You can bring in your own props. I don't care what you bring to the stage. Anything you want to do to set up. We have 5 cameras plus an HDMI input for like a laptop. If you want to also run slides or some people like multimedia, all those things are considered during the setup. And like just like a TV studio, we have different angles. We can capture different shots, and your guest or you or the whole stage. All that is really just like a little Saturday Night Live studio, or you can watch it live on the internet, or you can be in person at the theater.
So, do you still do it mobile, or is it now just a permanent location?
No, now it's permanent. Yeah, you come to the theater now and we'll produce it there for you. Maybe somewhere down the road, I'll do some remotes, just like, the full circle, like a radio station. You pay enough money for a sponsorship. I'll knock on your door and I'll be there Saturday morning, help you sell some cars at 9 a.m.
Right. So did you have a background in radio or TV, or how did you get into podcasting?
Now, I'm a marketing guy. I've been a marketing director for like 14 years at an auto group. So there's the tie into I'll help you sell remotes for cars.
Ah, okay. All right.
But I love marketing. I had a skateboard shop back in 2002. And back then, skateboarding is a very multimedia sport, especially that time on the internet. You're taking photos, you're making videos. We would have message boards, and we had our own little social media site, little social network.
Mm-hmm.
And all those things. I love media and independent production. I would make my own magazines like fanzines. I love that aspect. I love the DIY aspect more than I love the media aspect. So the idea that you can show up and create something and share it with the world, that's what I love, that creative process and putting it out there and see what happens.
Yeah, so this is kind of fascinating. How did you decide that this was a viable business model? Like, I can make money doing this?
Yeah, well, obviously thinking about it for 7 years helps. Acquiring things, I'm a big bootlegger or shoestring budget, just trying to piece things together. So I can go into some of the things I spent money on and what I didn't spend money on. But there was a local cohort through Bridgeway Capital in our area. I'm in kind of a depressed area, and they're helping small businesses get started. So I spent a year prior to this building a business plan, consulting with accountants, consulting with tax people. It was all covered through this program that really helped take a lot of that burden off me, other than like the initial capital to get this set up and running. I had some great assets and great allies with that cohort. And I met some other local business owners. We've done some collaborations together. And that helped me really see that, okay, there is some risk to this, but if I can get this thing turning on all cylinders, there's another car reference. This thing scales quickly and without a lot of overhead.
So when you're thinking of scaling, I'm assuming you're talking about multiple locations.
I would love multiple locations, even ones that I don't own. I would love for people to take this model, just like comedy clubs in the 70s and 80s really didn't exist, but they started to pop up so comedians could tour, just like small clubs and theaters and bars started hosting bands and live entertainment, and those bands can go from bar to bar. I think spaces like this could exist. Like, I'm in Pittsburgh. I'd love to see one in Cleveland and Columbus and Wheeling, West Virginia, so that podcasters can, okay, I can go to a place, maybe make $400 or $500 in a night for an hour show, and then I can go to the next town and just travel around. So this idea, I don't want to have it's not my idea. This is a thing that the world could launch, and we would have so much fun as podcasters, taking all of our podcasters to the next level and getting out there in front of people and doing these small little tours. For some people, podcasting is a hobby. Maybe you take a 2-week vacation and you travel and you do 5 shows maybe on your vacation, and you cover all your expenses and you get to meet fans and friends all over the place. So the big dream, a few years from now, is this becomes more than just one little place in Pittsburgh, but little spots all over the world.
Today's episode of The Profitable Creative is brought to you by Core Group. Are you tired of doing it all yourself? Do you feel like you have no plan? Let Core Group guide you to build the business of your dreams. Core Group, your go-to accountant for creatives.
Who do you see has had early success using this model, like that have used Poduty?
Yeah, so far I've done mostly like fundraisers. Nights out, I host a trivia show, so I do live trivia. We have some fun with interactive trivia where people are playing in the theater. They're playing maybe in Portland, Maine or Portland, Oregon. And we're having this shared experience, a shared moment. But we did a great fundraiser for local animal shelters. We raised like $800 in like 60 minutes. It was ridiculous. So those types of things that have a communal element. So I don't think, as much as I've been thinking about a live podcast theater for 7 years, nobody else has, right? I know that there's a learning curve to teaching podcasters, like, hey, this is another thing you can do. And I'm teaching the public, like, this podcasting isn't just something you listen to on your morning commute or at the gym. This could be a thing that you do when you go out. So I'm going through this learning curve and, just trying to get people to understand. And when you see people see it, like their faces light up, like, oh my goodness, this is what you built. That's the rewarding part to me, is really sharing this love and this passion.
So back up a second. How did you get from director of marketing into Poduty? Like, what did that journey look like?
When I had my skate shop, let's go back to like 2006, 2007. I fell in love with like marketing podcasts, like Marketing Over Coffee, the Beancast. Joseph Jaffe had a marketing podcast back then. Maybe it was called Advertcast or something. And I would be packing orders for my mail order skateboard shop and listening to podcasts. I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm getting this education, this free education. And I tried a marketing show with a great not a coworker, but somebody else in the industry in 2011. She went on to accept the job as the marketing director for Ghirardelli Chocolate. So she left. She wasn't going to stick around to do my silly little Pittsburgh podcast. So 2011, I did my first dabble. And then 2015 is when I really jumped all in with podcasting with my trivia show. And Blab was a big part of that. And I just kept going and going. And, you're learning every time you record something. Like I've learned, if I hear me say I lose my mind. If I hear myself say right or yeah, like that muscle you learn from hosting, you start to tune that out and you learn, you flex that muscle and become a stronger and stronger host. So around 2015 is when I really dove all in for podcasting and just like I said, I love that DIY element that you can create something and put in the world and you own it. You're not beholden to some sort of corporate dollar or structure. This is your thing.
That's interesting. So what was that transition like going from an employee to a business owner? Was that a challenge?
Well, I'm doing them both right now. So hopefully, hopefully I get to the point where I'm doing one or the other. We'll find out how it turns out. My goal with this project was I went through that cohort and I was turning 48. And I said, I've been thinking about this for so long. I need to now execute. I need to know by the time I'm 50, is this a thing or not a thing? And so we just opened in June. This is still a new concept. We're getting our legs underneath us. I signed a 2-year lease. I said, we opened June 13th. My birthday is June 12th. So, June 12th, 2 years from now, this is either a thing or it's not a thing. So if it's a thing, hopefully this is what I'll be doing in 2 years full time. If it's not a thing, I'll just be a marketing director again. But I'll know, then it won't eat at me anymore.
Yeah. Well, no, I think that's important. I think as creatives, we oftentimes have a lot of ideas. And the filter that I've begun using is, okay, if I'm on my deathbed, am I going to regret not trying it? And that kind of helps me filter because some of the things I'm like, I probably don't. I won't care. I won't lose any sleep over that. But others, it's like, yeah, definitely. I would regret not trying that.
Yeah, this definitely had that feeling for me. And I joke too with the people that I work with. Someone asked me a question about podcasting or something, and I'd always look at the clock, and it was always like 1:11 or 3:33. I'd think about it on the way home, and it was 4:44. I'm seeing these numbers way too much for this not to be a thing I'm going to regret if I don't do it. So that was kind of like, I don't see them anymore. Only when I was deciding to go all in, I was seeing these. I know it sounds crazy. I was seeing this alignment of triple numbers or quadruple numbers, and
it sounds like an episode of Fringe.
Yeah.
I don't know why that just popped to my mind.
Yeah, so I mean that's not why I decided to go forward with this, but there was this weird like synchronicity with these numbers, and I was like, okay, it's now or never. Let's just do it.
Okay, so speaking of the numbers, what's been your experience with podcasting as a business financially? Like what are some of the opportunities and challenges that you've experienced?
Yeah, so I'm in about a break-even process right now. We're like 6 months into it, 7 months into it. Some things help me out. I have, some AdWords money that comes in from Google Ads. I have it. My trivia show gets picked up by local cable television. So I get to sell that back to the cable company. They edit it, give me back the audio and a check. So those things that I've built up through podcasting have helped out a lot. I'm starting to get into this connection idea of bringing podcasters together. Because when I do virtual events, they fill up in like 3 days. We just did 2 6-hour live streams with new podcasters taking the stage every 30 minutes at the end of September. I had 25 podcasters in 3 days fill it up. It was so easy. But with Pittsburgh, I have a list, a spreadsheet, maybe 70, 80 local podcasts, and trying to get them into this idea, this concept of, bringing them to the theater, it's a hurdle. And I've had a much more difficult time locally than I do virtually. It's because everything I've done up to this point was virtual. So I started doing these meetups. I did a Pittsburgh podcast meetup about 2 weeks ago, and it was like that light bulb moment where, okay, there was like 20 people showed up for this, and they're hungry, but they were very much just getting into podcasting. Some of them only recorded their first episode. Some of them were curious about recording. I had maybe 2 people that recorded, more than 10 episodes. So I was like, okay, now this is something that's helping me locally, and people are excited to be here. So these 2 things like came together about 2 weeks ago. I'm going to do a same one because I am pretty strong virtually. We're going to do a global podcast meetup once a month too. So I think these 2 events in combination will be something that helps propel the growth of this theater a lot faster.
Yeah. I mean, like if you were to replicate what you have there in Pittsburgh at another location and you didn't take 7 years to go through the garage sales, would it take to set up what you've got there in another city? Not rent. I'm just talking about furnishing it with the equipment.
Yeah. I mean, rent is going to be a little bit different in the Pittsburgh area. I'm somewhere around $5 a square foot. So if you know anything,
no, not the rent, but like to put the theater together.
I'll point to everything real quick. The stage is $1,000. The truss is $1,000. The chairs, I actually shop around. I like bootstrapping things. I got 100 chairs for $2 a piece. So these orange chairs, I still have 60 in the basement that are sitting there. All these other chairs, there's so many Amazon auctions out there. You can find these blue chairs were $400 retail. I got for $50. So same with the lighting. That was $300 of lights. I got through Amazon auctions for $30. So when you start to get into this and all this like pipe and drape, if you ever price pipe and drape, it's like $170 for like 8x10. Again, I'm using auctions and I bought all the pipe and drape in the theater for maybe like $300. There's a ton of pipe and drape. So I go a little crazy with the pipe and drape. But if you want it,
but then you got your camera equipment.
So the cameras they're just Feel Worlds, something, I forget the actual brand name. They're decent. They got good guts. They're like $400 a piece. They're not PTZs yet. That's my dream, is to upgrade to the PTZs. So you're talking, maybe $1,500 for the cameras. I bought a Roland mixer. It's a VR6 HD, which has 6 audio HDMI or 6 audio inputs and 6 HDMI inputs all into one board, which is really nice. I can do all my switching. I can control all the audio. So that was like $3,000. So, I mean, all in, I would say under $8,000 to $10,000, you could set something up like this fairly easily.
Do you do the production for the show or?
Yes.
Okay. They don't have to bring their own producer.
Yeah. You can't see it. It's on this side. There's another pipe and drape right here. That's the little control room that kind of goes into the front of the house. I'm back there switching and running everything back there.
Well, one of the things that I think I see in the creative world is what you recognized a few weeks ago in Pittsburgh is this craving for community. And, virtual is a low bar, right? But in some ways it's lacking. We're looking at doing we're going to have a live event in October of next year. And the reason why is because you just get a connection at a live event that you don't get virtually. And I think this sounds like a great opportunity to leverage communities.
Yeah, 100%. Like you said, the virtual, it's the ease of access is there, and so is the investment, I think, that your attendees bring, right? It's too easy to get there. I can get the recording later, or they're not as invested as if they had to.
I can do something else while I'm listening. I can do work. Yeah. And you use the right word, investment. There's not a lot of investment, so it's a different energy that people bring.
Yeah. So when you can also come here, I try to say, think of the stage like a portal. You could be on stage performing your show, and behind the curtain there is a 72-inch TV. You could have a virtual guest. You could be interviewing somebody from California on the stage in front of a live theater, right? And those people in the theater could actually ask questions back to the stage and back to the virtual guest. and people watching can ask questions. So when you're there or whether you're watching virtually, I'm trying to really build that. We talked about that intimate experience of listening to a podcast by yourself, because when the lights come down, the people in the theater, all they can do is just see what's on that stage, and it draws you in. So I'm trying to create that to create engagement, to recreate that feeling that you get in your earbuds. I'm trying to do that live so that the investment when you come to the theater and you're in there and you're just looking up at the stage and taking it all in, I'm giving you that same experience that you might get when you're at the gym or on your morning commute. So not only do you have to invest more time to get there, but the reward for being there in person, like you're saying, it's so much greater. The connection is so much greater with the people on stage, and you walk away with something you're never going to get in a virtual environment.
Hey, listeners, are you ready to turn your passion into profit? Then grab a copy of Profit First for Creatives. Click the link in the show notes to purchase a copy. And if you're not ready to make that full commitment, you can download a free copy of the first chapter. Check it out right now. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not driving or flying to Pittsburgh to do a show. Are you considering doing your own show besides the trivia, like in the theater?
Yeah, one of the ones I launched recently with Wise Otero and Maria Daniels is called Rise and Outshine. It's a podcast showcase. So part of this community building and connecting people is we ask podcasters to come on. They do a 10-minute segment of their show. Most of the time it's live, but I also accept recordings if you want to do a 10-minute recording. And while you're doing that, the judges, which are myself, Wise, and Maria, we're scoring on our phone, and so are the folks at home. And we have little slide scales, so you can audio quality, engaging host, does the content match the description, and production quality. So we're scoring the show in real time, and kind of like a star search. We're trying to give feedback with this respect, with love, with caring back to the podcaster, because they're a lot of times they're very vulnerable to come on the stage to do 10 minutes of their show in front of a live audience. So all we want to do is give them real-time feedback. How are you doing now in this moment? And then after you submit your score, while the show's going on, we ask everybody, just type in any words that you can think of. Are you inspired, entertained, engaged? And a lot of times people put jokes that they heard on the show, and they'll type in some funny words that they heard. And we build this word cloud in real time while you're on the show. And then when that's over, we talk about how it went. We ask them if they how do they think they did? Can they have improved? Then we go over the scores with them. Then we go over the word cloud with them. And obviously they get to plug and promote their show at the end. But that idea, again, of community and sharing and helping each other grow is just something I really love doing. It's the direction I want to take the shows that I'm producing, and is interactive, entertaining, engaging, and just keep building on that community aspect.
I think you're definitely onto something. And I'm kind of like you. The vision is not entirely in focus, but I can see the elements there. I don't know exactly how this works out to be profitable, but I think the elements of profitability are certainly there, because you've got people engaged, and that's step one.
Yeah. I think especially with the global summits that I'm going to do monthly, I think there's opportunity certainly there for sponsorship. If I'm bringing 300 podcasters together once a month, somebody has some interest in that value. So I think in the short term, getting past breaking even through sponsorships at events like that, so I can still offer a free ticket to a virtual guest coming into a podcast meetup. I think that's a no-brainer for a lot of businesses, podcast hosts or other services that podcasts offer. I think that's it's the low bar. But from there, can that turn into a semi-annual event or an annual event where, with a paid ticket, with an in-house ticket too as well. So like you said, all the pieces are there. What this all means, I think I have probably the best grasp on it, but it's still a puzzle, and I'm still putting the pieces together.
Yeah, what's coming to my mind, I just am finishing Unforgettable by Marshawn. He is a event strategist out of Wichita, Kansas. And he talks about making, live events transformative and all different formats from, conventions, trade shows, workshops, whatever they be. And a lot of what you're talking about is resonating with what I'm reading with him. And I go back to, in today's age where everything is technical, everything is technologically enabled, there's this, and AI is just it on steroids, is this really this need for authenticity, for real connection with people. And I think you're on the right track. I'm not exactly sure how it works. So I'm very curious to see how this works out.
Yeah, and what I built too, I control the entire process. We didn't talk about the nuts and bolts of it, but when you come to me with an idea or a show and you want to get on the schedule, I can build a landing page for you. I can facilitate the ticket sales for you. I'm recording that for the creator, and I'm giving them back. I take no ownership rights on their content. I give it back so they can release it later as a podcast. And the way the business model works, at the end of the night, there's no minimum at this point. We're just going to split the door 50-50. So whatever tickets you can sell, whatever I can do to help you produce it, we're going to split the door 50-50. So my hope is, maybe your first show, you'll sell 10 tickets. You walk away with $50, which isn't, for most podcasters, they're going to jump for joy. They just covered all their expenses for a month. Like, they're pretty excited for $50. But we build on that, and next time maybe you get to 20 tickets or 30 tickets. And that's the goal. This being a new concept and bringing in new talent, we're developing that talent and we're getting it to grow. Like, I have a guy coming in Friday. We're doing a show. He's from North Carolina. He's going to be in town for the holidays. He's like, let's do a show. And I'm really excited about doing that because that's somebody who's bringing in people from North Carolina to watch online, but he has local friends and family locally. So they're going to come watch it. And that's just, getting butts into seats and turning over that room over and over again. So those little things help you grow along the way. And I know, like, 6 months from now, those things start to pay off in dividends just by that turnover, that velocity. The more people I can get in and out of there, the more that'll resonate for future shows down the road. And that's kind of the thought process I've been taking with this, building that community, getting velocity through there, turnover through there, and just keep putting out a great experience. Like, probably what you're reading, like, this is something people have never experienced before. But when they walk out of there, they're thanking me and they're saying, that was great. I'm so glad I got out of the house. Some of the other things that you were mentioning about, people longing for connection, I think, and it's small, and I don't think you're going to see this on a great scale right away. But a lot of people right now are waking up to the fact that they are unbelievably addicted to their phones. They are starting to I need to detoxify from this. I need to get this out of my life. And where you see it the most is like kids who are like 10 to 18 years old have seen what it has done to their parents, where they can't be at home without their parents on the couch just mindlessly scrolling. They're seeing that this technology isn't giving you great connection. You're connected to everything, but you have no connection to anything. And you're seeing this a lot with the younger generation. You're starting to see it, but people are still addicted. People are saying they know it's bad, but they don't. That hasn't stopped their behavior yet. So.
That dopamine button still keeps getting pushed.
That's right. But I think people are becoming more aware of it. And obviously, since COVID, there haven't been the same type of connections that we had prior to that. Theaters are still barely recovering. Movie theaters, especially. People going out. Restaurants seem to be doing okay, but people are starting to get out more, and they are yearning for an actual human connection. And I think, as those numbers get, maybe it's only 3 or 4% right now, but I think people tend to move in herds. So, maybe we'll get to 8 to 10% by the end of next year. And there'll be a tipping point at some point where people are like, okay, there's a whole world out here. Why aren't we enjoying it?
Yeah. And for most podcasters, they're not going to go drop 10 grand to set up a studio for their show. But it would definitely make sense if you had 50 to 100 in your metro area that they could use the space. I mean, I think that's a brilliant idea. Whether it'll work, we don't know, but I think it's a brilliant idea.
Yeah, we'll know in 2 years for sure.
That's right. Well, if you've got the content lined out, I'd love to talk to you further about coming to our event in October, because that would be a great presentation, and we could do a live podcast there at the event.
Yes, let's talk some more. I'd love to do that.
Yeah. Well, Jeff, I really appreciate your time. I love what you're doing. How can people find you to learn more about Padilla?
What did you? I think you combined my last name and
yes, I did.
It almost sounds like the like the onion blossom from the Outback Steakhouse. You get a Padilla. It's Poduty.com, Poduty. You can find me on Facebook. I'm 50 years old, right? So I'm on Facebook at facebook.com/Revilla, Revilla. Or I'm on LinkedIn too. You'll find I have a pretty nice following over on LinkedIn, Jeff Revilla, LinkedIn, or Poduty.com. There's always a connect with me button over there.
Perfect. Listeners, if you like what you heard, please rate the podcast, share the podcast, subscribe to the podcast. If you don't like Jeff and me, message us and I'll find some replacements. I don't know who, but we'll find somebody. Until later, ta-ta for now.
And that's a wrap for today's episode of The Profitable Creative. Until next time, you money lovers. And don't forget, Profit First for Creatives is live via Amazon. Link below.